want to start with a poem that is not in any of my published books yet. Some of you might know that I keep a daily writing practice. I'm going to be reading all the poems today from my daily writing practice. It will be 11 years in November that I have been writing a poem a day. There's a poem by the late poet Tom Lux called Ode to the Joyful Ones, where he praises those among us who seem naturally joyful and open, and I quote, "You don't have to tell them to walk toward the light, because their shining fills the room." While his is a beautiful poem, and indeed it really truly is, sometimes I wonder, for one thing, as a parent of children who have suffered anxiety and depression, and I have many young students under my mentorship too, I wonder if sometimes we forget that there are many of us who don't always feel so golden. So this poem is called The Others. And what of the others? Should they not also be protected like the joyful ones? They stumble even more among us, make mistakes they never seem to learn from, even after having made them again and again. Family coffers are drained from being used for bail, to bribe some offended party to look away and not press charges, to fix the damage done by hands or feet that bash the door in, or a car windshield in the middle of some consuming, unjoyful rage. When they are with others, the aura of their crippling pain will sometimes obliterate every other sense in the room. And then you realize how fleeting joy is, how pleasure evaporates before the dew dries off the leaf in the morning. They eye the better piece of pork chop on the table, the slice of cake, the plate of imported ham and cheese, and transfer the good sheets to their beds. They want it all, for in them is such a hunger not even milk and honey at midnight could appease. As for the light, they want it as much as you, perhaps even more, having lived seemingly so far from it for so long. A mere sliver in the distance drives the sharpest pang into their hearts. Oh, what they could give to simply throw off the covers, open a window, walk out the door into a blinding field of radiance that won't extract too high a price for the grace of living inside it. For my next poem, I would like to read what I read at the Juneteenth program of Governor Northam, and also because September 8th marked a profoundly important moment in Virginia with the removal of the Lee statue in Richmond. Like other symbols of the Confederacy in the Commonwealth and in the country at large, the statue was removed after the killing of George Floyd ignited a nationwide call for reckoning with racism and police brutality. And a New York Times article also described how the dismantling of statues and other symbols of a history of prejudice, hate, and systemic oppression leaves cities littered with empty pedestals, a kind of symbol of America's unfinished business of race. So as an immigrant and woman of color, as someone part of a minority community, it feels empowering to know that a poem I wrote as both an act of witness to our times and also as a kind of letter or reminder, a letter of complaint to America, if you will, which has not fulfilled that part of its promise to citizens to safeguard liberty and justice for all, was part of the collection of 49 artifacts sealed into a new time capsule put into the pedestal where the statue once stood. And it's almost as if the wounds, in order to eventually heal and close, must still paradoxically sit with these artifacts of our shared and ongoing hopes and suffering. So we need to actively remember everything that happened. This poem is called Dear America, or American Dream. And it has an epigraph from a letter written by Abraham Lincoln, or delivered in a speech in 1861, and I quote, "Working men are the basis of all governments." Dear America. And now that we're told we have the dream, how do we make sure it doesn't deteriorate into a substandard or lapsed edition, or heaven forbid, a bootleg copy manufactured in a third world sweatshop of the dream? And is this set of papers the guarantee to which we have affixed at the bottom of every page and on every margin of every page the semblance of a seal, i.e. our John Hancocks, our signatures in ink whose upswept tails testify to our consent to the terms and conditions set forth thereby? Have we observed the proper decorum, that heady mixture conjoined of nervousness concealed under uncertain pride? Are we to believe your plumply jovial representatives, all pinstriped or suited up in black like undertakers, which they are, in a manner of speaking, since it is admittedly such a large undertaking to raise one's right hand and solemnly swear before the book, the chair, the one holding the gavel in the chair, the alabaster one whose eyes are shielded by a blindfold. Oh, most cool lady whose face never registers the difficulty of holding up those scales. Does the dream we've been granted taste, smell, and handle like the ones our neighbors have? Does each of us down our block and around the city have the same level plot to cultivate, make, multiply, pull up by the bootstraps? What kinds of fences exist in the dream? And are there border guards who will check and check through our documents, though we've surrendered them more than the minimum times required, while others go on to pick up square after square of reward, never once being sent back, tasered, choked, wrenched from the arms off, sent to jail or detention, or disappeared, or told to go back to start, do not pass go. And this, as you know, is history. Our people making their way through fields and orchards, shimmering like some kind of wet with dew or gold with sunset dream, their hands bleeding the grass as they go. Our children turning around and around in your funhouse mirror tunnels of the dream, lined with foil sheets and tinny music, running repeatedly into each other until one day the dream makes them forget who they were. One last offering, if you will allow me, and I will shift gears a little bit. The title of the poem is something that I was actually asked in one of the interviews that I gave in the past year and some. And there's an epigraph to the poem. It is from Revelation. The first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. And I guess I also take stock of all the upheaval and all of the sort of isolation and anxiety we are still living through. So thank you also for the risk of coming here in the name of poetry. So, when you sit down to write, is death ever sitting beside you? Should I say, please don't come too close. Don't breathe that way down my neck. I smell resin and smoke from forests burning. Hear the crackle of wings as the rainforest ceiling begins its collapse. You seem so curious about what I might write next. Now that the world's catalog of images has dwindled, not yet nothing. not yet complete extinction, but well on the way. Your cloak is the color of worn silk or dull knives, your hair a sad and unconditioned tangle, desperate for a brush. I was unhappy too, going without a shower for weeks after our city shook like a train of dominoes, clicking down and down around every block. The first night, hard rain made moats of mud around each cracked plywood sheet we tossed for bedding on the ground. And then the taps hissed like crazed snakes, so we backed away, taking our plastic pails instead to the empty lake. Nothing lasts. Hasn't that always been your bottom line? But these circling moths, these thin-winged creatures with indigo bars and copper eyes on their backs, I want so much to cup their shine in my hands, pin them to my hair or breast. Keepsakes I won't surrender to the ongoing blaze. Thank you so much.